Hey, spiritual warriors, welcome back. Did you know that there is something more insidious than worrying about guns? There's other so-called guns we need to worry about. If you ever seen a syringe, it's kind of loaded like one, right? And I'm just going to put up a couple of clips, not going to make this long. I'll put the documentary below about the controversial drug thalidomide that was allowed to be prescribed years ago, and all the victims from that, and that's still with us today, and that if it's not one thing, it's another, that it's an attack on your temple, it's an attack to get into your body. And I've talked about World War III being more of a silent weapon, because when you're poisoning your so-called enemies, it's quiet, isn't it? It's very quiet. And everyone talks about the miracles of medicine. Well, kind of funny how they talk about miracles, but they're supposed to be scientific. Which one is it, right? Shows you it's a false religion. Even yesterday, false pagan religion, worshiping Project Janus. You need to look that up. The god Janus, the two-faced god, because they're very two-faced. They'll say, yeah, we care about the children and their health. And then meanwhile, you'll see many children being born today with horrific deformities, right? And they're like, shrug, oh well, and don't tell me they didn't already know. They always already know. And the devil will always smile in your face, And the devil loves to appear as an angel of light. There's many devils, Satan just means adversary. Okay, there's books talking about, there's many so-called fallen angels. And trying to, they call them the Anunnaki. They're different reptilian names for them too. The Nagas, the snake people. Many movies talk about that. You go down that road too much, you get called this and that. I don't give a damn, right? If it's so crazy, why does Hollywood obsess over these topics? And in the movies, the bad guy will always be the one with the weapon, always trying to cover your mouth. Isn't that what they're trying to do now? Always trying to stick you with something, stab you with something, or shoot you with something. And so they give you this person, Jenny McCarthy, like they always give you like a bullshit spokesperson. They did that with the hippie movement and a lot of these movements. They'll see that there's a movement starting, and wasn't there a big quote that said, if you can't control them, you know, if you can't beat them, control them. It's something like that about hijacking grassroots movements, like they did with so-called Black Lives Matter or whatever. So, yeah, just going to show you a little something. This was a very powerful documentary here, and we'll see, if children are really, if that's something they're really worried about, okay? Because they talk double talk. When a liar says something, should you believe them? Of course not. So I hope this wakes a few people up to show you when they say something's good for you, and then years later you'll see the consequences. I'm hoping that will wake up some minds.
The company now saying its COVID-19 vaccine is safe and effective for kids aged 5 to 11. We're getting
right. Makes you think of this song.
Always lying. Oh my God. Stop fucking lying. Always lying to me. You're lying so much. You're making it hard for me. Yeah.
Please watch this and remember this documentary and circulate it when they say something is safe, it's good, nothing bad will happen, and we care about your children. Do they really?
The worst drug disaster in history would spread through more than 46 countries and produce up to 20,000 badly deformed babies worldwide. But historians today single out one birth in 1961 that changed the course of history. In Hamburg, Germany, Linda Schulte-Hillen, aged 23, gave birth to her first child. Her husband wasn't with her at the time.
And it was quiet there. And then I lay back and was relaxed, and somebody whispered into my ear, is your husband not all right? And I was here, wide awake, and I said, what has happened to my baby? Is anything wrong? Yeah, she said, just, let's say, without any emotion. Yeah, he's just got short arms. And I, like a child would have asked possibly, I said, and aren't they growing anymore? And she said, this can't grow. This will be like it is now. And then I felt like I was beaten to death.
A doctor gave the first-time mother some friendly advice.
Just get another child. Like, forget about him, you know? Throw him away, forget about him.
Shortly afterwards, Linda's husband arrived and gave her some bad news he'd been keeping from her. 6 weeks earlier, his sister had given birth to a baby with similar deformities.
It looks alike, like our child. There must be something that is the same origin, the same difficulty, the same problem in the background. And we'll find it, and we'll search, and we won't stop until we've found.
The epidemic of deformed babies began 5.5 years earlier, on Christmas Day 1956, with the birth of the first victim. In the small town of Aachen, Germany, a mother had taken a new drug called Thalidomide, being developed by a local drug company, Chemie Grunenthal. Her husband, like other Grunenthal employees, had taken home a sample, which he gave to his pregnant wife. The baby would be the first of 6 thalidomide babies, possibly more, born to Grunenthal workers in the years ahead. But the company ignored the early warning signals in their midst.
None of that spurred Grunenthal to any action. Grunenthal didn't investigate, didn't talk to the mum, didn't go to the hospital, didn't look at the medical records, didn't contact experts. There were multiple opportunities for Grunenthal to cut the whole disaster short. None of them were taken.
9 months after the first deformed baby was born, Grunenthal launched thalidomide onto the German market under the brand name Contergan. Grunenthal's aggressive sales force, whose motto was "succeed at any cost," continued to promote the drug. Contergan, they claimed, was a safe sedative, especially for pregnant women suffering from morning sickness. Sales zoomed, and thalidomide became the second best-selling drug next to aspirin. But Linda Schulte-Hillen and her husband, Karl Hermann, were determined to find out what caused their son's short arms. Months later, they were no closer to finding an answer.
I know my husband had times when he said, we won't make it. I think we have to give up. And I said, oh, I'm not giving up.
Her husband soon contacted a professor of obstetrics, Dr. Widukind Lenz, who had received a few reports of deformed babies.
My father and Professor Lenz, they traveled Germany in their old Volkswagen, and they went from one small village to another and asked, are there any children with short legs or short arms born? And those kids were hidden away at that time in the small villages. And he asked in restaurants and bars and at the local police office, and everybody said, no, not in our town. And then he showed a picture of me and said, this is my boy, and can I please repeat my question? And then they said, well, at the end of the road, there has been a very sad incident. And then he went there and rang the door and showed, the first thing he did was showing the picture of me and said, this is my son. Do you also have a kid like this? And the people burst in tears, and children, thalidomide children were, well, pulled to the day of light, literally.
I'll just show a few more minutes, but I thought that was pretty powerful. And then we wonder, why do we see movies like this that's happening in fires all over the world? Not trying to be all doom and gloom, but this shit is doom and gloom when you see a whole generation, and then you got these weirdos. I've seen like these bunk religious people put up pictures of deformed children online saying, pray for them, blah, blah, like there's some type of human, exhibit, like that's kind of, making them look like some type of circus sideshow. It's kind of sad, like what happened to them, what made them like that. That's what we should be warning people.
Received reports of deformed babies, but had been assured by Grunenthal that the drug was completely safe. Louise Mason was one of 530 thalidomide babies born in England over a 6.5-year period. Louise only learned about the circumstances of her birth by reading her father's best-selling autobiography.
I hadn't got any arms and I hadn't got any legs. And my dad said it was like little flower buds, from my arms and from my legs. My dad had a look at me and he said, "My God, you're not going to let this baby live." And they said, yes. My mum was only 21 and she was advised by doctors to put me away and concentrate on having another family.
After 11 days in hospital, her parents took Louise to an institution for handicapped children, where she would spend the next 18 years of her life. But Louise was fortunate. Her father had not asked another doctor to end her life.
It is unquestionable that midwives and doctors were killing disabled children in the hospitals.
Isn't that so sad? So they're doomed to a death sentence when these pharmaceutical creators and these evil devils should be the ones that should be pronounced the death penalty, right? So it shows you this world is so wicked. It is the upside down. It is like some parallel reality. This hell is already on earth, okay? So we're here trying to fight all these devils and warn people when they say something's good for you, please think twice.
The delivery rooms on a large scale in Britain, in Germany, and if they're probably everywhere else.
In Canada, another armless baby was spared by a poor Ukrainian family in rural Saskatchewan. Years later, Alvin Law learned how horrified his natural parents were when he was born.
Ultimately, it was the paternal grandmother who didn't want to have anything to do with this. She said, "You're not going to bring that devil baby home with you. He's deformed because of a curse."
The armless baby wasn't taken home after doctors warned he would never lead a normal life. But after 6 weeks, an elderly couple, Jack and Hilda Law, who had already raised their own children, volunteered as foster parents and got their first look at Alvin.
And I took one look and I thought, no wonder nobody wanted to have. And the next time I went to see him, of course, they had him bathed and dressed, and he didn't look too bad at all.
Well, I wasn't in favor of taking him at all. No way. We'd raised our family and that was it. But it was a baby with nobody wanted him, so what are you going to do? Turned out okay.
My life story shifted the moment that Sophie and Peter, my birth father, gave me up. That is a profound chapter shift in my life. Because I went to live with the Laws, my life became this life.
In Cincinnati, Ohio, a deeply religious Roman Catholic couple with 6 children were expecting another normal birth.
My mother's story is that when I was born, they were not at all prepared. The doctor said, "Joy, your baby doesn't have any legs." So she says that she took the baby, me, and she said, "Well, Eileen is my 4-leaf clover." I have a sibling who told me that my father cried and that when he came home, he handed me to my siblings and everyone got very upset. And they said, "Take it away." Someone ripped off the blankets and said, "That's not a baby," or something to that effect. "That's not our sister." That was what I was told as a young child. Painful.
Eileen Cronin was one of several thalidomide babies born in Cincinnati, where an American drug company, Richardson Merrill, had their headquarters. Like the German drug company, Merrill promoted the drug as completely safe, even during pregnancy. Like Grunenthal, Merrill had no evidence to back this up. Merrill applied to the Federal Drug Administration in 1960 for approval to bring thalidomide onto the American market, and was allowed to conduct clinical trials on patients across the country.
Now, it wasn't a clinical trial at all. What it was a marketing campaign trumped up to look like a clinical trial.
Michael Magazanik is an Australian lawyer and former investigative reporter who spent years researching the thalidomide disaster.
What Merrill wanted to do was to familiarise doctors with their drug so that once they got approval, they would have doctors all ready to go, thrilled with the drug, ready to prescribe it like crazy.
Thalidomide was now being sold in close to 50 countries worldwide. In 1961, in Australia, Dr. William McBride delivered 3 thalidomide babies in a few months. He alerted distillers, the British distributor of thalidomide, but they claimed they never received his warnings. And pregnant mothers like Wendy Rowe continued to take thalidomide for morning sickness. But when her daughter, Lynette, was born, Wendy immediately knew something was wrong.
When she was born,
And then I get shit for what I talk about. Let me tell you, ginger is great for nausea. If these women had some knowledge of their ancestors of holistic medicine, this would have never happened, right? We need to stop giving them our trust. Stop giving them our bodies. The state is not your God. People don't want to listen to the Most High, but they want to listen to evil, corrupt politicians behind the state, the wizards behind the curtains. Like, talk about sad.
there was just deadly silence in the room, and I just knew that something must be wrong. And nobody said a word. It was just loud silence. And anyway, finally they said to me that there was a problem and that Lynn had no arms and legs, and and they gave it to me, and she doesn't look very different to what she does now. She had sticky up hair and the cutest little face, but it's just like, well, it was like a nightmare, I suppose, But then when you looked at her and thought, well, you've got to love it. You can't do anything about it. But they said, we think she's got some brain damage, but we don't know what extent. And I just looked at her and I thought, here's this little thing, no arms and legs, and if she's got brain damage as well, what hope has she got? They told me that I should put her in a home, that she would be dead in 6 months. We left her there for a week while we went away, just to get our head around it all, and then came back to pick her up. And that was really hard, going back to the hospital to pick her up.
Okay, class, who would like to do problem?
Crazy guys that they have to make those kind of decisions. Let me X out of this. I'll put the link below too. Let me see if this will even play for us a little bit more. If not, that's okay. But that's big pharma for you, big harma. Harm. They worship Hermes and all these false entities that want to hurt you.
In Germany, Grunenthal's advertising campaign was paying huge dividends. The company's owner and executives were making fortunes overnight, especially Heinrich Muchter, Grunenthal's research director. During the war, Muchter served as a Nazi doctor developing vaccines which were tested on Jewish prisoners in the Buchenwald concentration
You heard that. I didn't say it. They did. You just heard that, right?
camp, many of whom died. After the war, Muchter joined Grunenthal. 9 years later, he invented thalidomide and received a bonus for every thalidomide pill sold worldwide.
In Germany, where the pill sold at a rate of 15 million a month, 5,000 children have been born deformed. From Stolberg, Germany, Morley Safer reports.
In November of 1961, just 300 miles from here in Hamburg, Dr. Videkund Lenz, the director of human genetics at the University of Hamburg, found an astounding increase in the number of deformed babies. He deduced that Contergan, or thalidomide, was the cause.
Grunenthal sent out 66,000 letters to German doctors declaring their drug was safe. 66,000 letters to German doctors. I mean, that was a period where they'd been told that their drug was likely responsible for an epidemic of malformations and deaths, and they're telling doctors their drug is safe.
And it really wasn't until the press got hold of it and they knew it was going to go public that they finally backed off and agreed.
On November 28, 1961, a day after the thalidomide scandal made headlines in West Germany, Grunenthal announced it was withdrawing the drug from the market.
Even if as late as the spring of 1961 they had taken the drug off the market then, they would have spared half the babies.
In England, Louise Mason didn't see her parents and 3 siblings for months at a time.
I was left alone most of the time. My parents had other children. There's no way that they could leave them with my nan because my grandpa was ill. So they just stopped coming. I went home 3 weeks a year for a week. 1 week in the summer, 1 week at Christmas, and 1 week at Easter. Every holiday was like getting to know your brothers and sisters again.
Alvin Law's parents decided the best way to get their armless son to cope with life was to turn his toes into fingers. For hours, Alvin was given manual tasks to perform with his feet.
Now, granted, having no arms isn't exactly a rather simple disability. It's a very complicated disability. And I'd be lying if I didn't say it was a lot of work. A lot of work. A lot of time spent by myself, being very lonely, being very afraid, being very frustrated. But I think it was the character that was built.
It's amazing to show you the spirit, how we can overcome. But this is a tragedy. Let's think about this story before we allow them to manipulate us again.
Unwavering support and encouragement were critical in his career decision.
She never lost hope. She said, you everything you want to achieve in your life, you're going to achieve it. I have absolutely no doubt. And when I turned up with the idea that I wanted to be a doctor, everybody told me you should not. It's not a very good idea. You cannot do that. You will have severe problems. She said, son, do your own thing. If that's what you want to do, you're gonna manage.
Jan is now an emergency room doctor in Switzerland.
I don't consider my condition as a major issue. I mean, I'm not a thalidomide in the first spot. I'm a man. I'm trying to be a good doctor. I'm trying to be a good husband. I'm a father. I'm a lover. And I have short arms. And that's it. And if people have problems accepting me or have problems to interact with me because I have short arms, it's their problem. It's not.
It's definitely not your fault, sir. We know whose fault it is. Big Pharma, Big Pharma. It's all about this. We know who freaking deserves the real death sentence. Okay, this stuff, yep, they just treat you like this, and then when, you're sick or you're broke, they're done with you. Done with you. Look up the term allopathy. Learn what the real causes of death is in this country and in this world. And please, just have a little common sense. Have a little common sense. Why is everybody so sick? So when they tell you, oh, do this, it's good. Of course, the businessman or woman, the corporate owner is going to say their product is good. Wouldn't that be bad for business if they come out and say it's bullshit? Just like a drug dealer, a lot of the coke dealers, they won't use their product because they know it's poison, and they'll just do the herbs, right? You notice that? Same hustle, just with the suit on, okay, guys? So there will be no peace for the wicked. Their time is numbered. They think they're getting away with something, but they're not. So I hope you have a good day, and I'll put that documentary below. So I hope that was educational, and just be safe out there.